In a luxury restaurant, a racist waitress openly mocked Obama. But little did she know, her target wasn't just any man. What happens next will take your breath away. It was a typical Friday night at Silver Creek Tavern, the recently renovated dining room echoing with the chatter of LA's elite. Young tech moguls in tailored suits mingled with social media influencers snapping pictures of gold leaf desserts, and families who had been loyal patrons for generations continued their weekly tradition. Amidst the crowd sat a man in a simple gray polo shirt and comfortable trousers, quietly sipping whiskey at his regular table. Most of the longtime staff recognized him. How could they not? But 8 months ago, when Barack Obama quietly acquired Silver Creek Tavern, he had requested that they treat him like any other guest during his periodic visits. He believed that the true measure of a restaurant was not how it treated famous figures, but how it treated ordinary people. Emma, the newest server at the restaurant, knew nothing of this. Just graduated from a prestigious hospitality school, she was in the process of building her own food blog. During her shift, she alternated between fawning over social media celebrities and casting judgment on the man dressed simply in her section. Jack, the longtime manager, watched from afar, his face anxious. He had seen that look in Emma's eyes before, the same look she had given a retired doctor last week for daring to wear loafers instead of dress shoes. But tonight was different. Tonight, her judgment would have consequences she couldn't imagine. As the sound of Emma's heels clicked toward Barack's table, Jack held his breath. The longtime staff tensed, recognizing the silence before the storm. The man in the polo shirt took another sip of whiskey, a familiar, gentle smile forming at the corners of his mouth. Emma couldn't hide the disdain in her gaze as she looked at Barack. She tried to maintain her composure but couldn't shake the discomfort she felt about his presence in a restaurant she believed was meant for those of true class. She stood at the table, her iPhone peeking out slightly from her apron, forcing a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sir, I couldn't help but notice you've been drinking whiskey here for quite some time," she said, pausing to create a small space, subtly implying that he had been sitting there too long without seeming to care about the busy atmosphere around him. Barack Obama looked up, his calm demeanor unchanged, like someone who had faced countless national leaders and CEOs during his years as president. "The whiskey is quite good," he said, his voice measured, unbothered. Emma continued, her tone feigning concern. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the bar. We have a few reserved groups for this table." She pointed at the pristine white tablecloth, which is usually reserved for our VIP guests. Carlos, a young server who had immigrated from Mexico 2 years ago and worked tirelessly to support his family, overheard the conversation as he cleared a nearby table. He knew exactly who the man in the polo shirt was. He had admired Barack Obama and his inspiring speeches. But now, his grip tightened around his tray, struggling to hold back his rising fury. Barack, unfazed, looked Emma square in the eye. "I'm comfortable here," he said calmly, as though her words were nothing but an insignificant echo in the quiet space. He took another sip of whiskey, unhurried, as if time could not touch him. Emma's professional facade cracked slightly. She glanced at her watch, then looked toward the group of young tech executives waiting at the bar. "Sir, our chef has prepared a very unique menu, and the prices." She paused. Deliberately, her gaze landing on his simple attire, "reflect the caliber of our restaurant," she emphasized, a thinly veiled criticism. She wanted him to know that, with his outfit, he didn't belong in this space. At a nearby table, an older couple who had been regulars for 20 years began to feel uncomfortable. The husband started to speak up, but his wife touched his hand, recognizing the look in Barack's eyes, a look that had appeared in many iconic moments of cinema. But Barack didn't change his demeanor. He looked at Emma, his gaze sharp and steady. "I know the prices," Barack Obama said softly, his voice low and powerful like one of his famous speeches. "And I know the chef's work." Emma's smile completely disappeared as she pulled out her order pad with a sharp, irritated motion. "So, should I explain the menu to you, course by course?" she said, her final words laced with mockery, clearly undermining his age. Carlos, still standing nearby, couldn't take it anymore. He stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "Miss Emma, maybe I should call Jack." Emma turned around, snapping, "Go clear the table. That's your job." She turned back to look at Barack Obama, who was still intently watching the scene, particularly the intervention by Carlos. "Sir, for the last time, I want to tell you that this is not some roadside diner. This is Silver Creek Tavern. Things may have been different in the past, but we have our standards now." Barack Obama slowly set his whiskey glass down. His movement, though subtle, drew more attention than Emma's emotional outburst. A few older patrons immediately recognized the calm familiarity, just like they did during his most memorable moments in politics and speeches they'd once heard. "In my day," he said softly, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, in your day," Emma smirked. "The days when anyone could walk in, wear anything, order cheap whiskey, and take the seat of the real guests." Emma couldn't hold back any longer. Her contempt for the customers who didn't keep up with trends flared up intensely. "Times have changed," she continued. "This is a classy place, meant for those who appreciate modern luxury." Carlos stopped cleaning the table, standing still, his eyes never leaving the unfolding scene. Jack, the manager, quickly approached, realizing the situation was getting out of control. "Modern luxury?" Barack repeated, as if testing the words. "And what does that mean to you, Emma?" Her name made her flinch. She wasn't wearing a name tag, but she quickly regained composure, thinking he must have heard someone else call her name. "What I mean is," she said with confidence, "there are places not meant for everyone. Our customers expect a special space." She gestured toward a group of young businessmen taking selfies with a golden dessert. "They understand, they respect what Silver Creek Tavern stands for. They're not here to pretend to be someone else." A few veteran staff members exchanged knowing glances. Jack was only a few steps away now, his worry evident on his face. "That's interesting," Barack said with a slight smile. "You're absolutely right, Emma." "Listen," Emma said, her voice rising, "I've tried to be polite, but it's clear you don't belong here. This isn't some old cowboy movie set. This is a prestigious establishment, and I won't let you ruin the experience for our real customers." The moment the words left her mouth, Jack froze, and Carlos dropped the tool bucket with a loud clatter that echoed throughout the silent restaurant. The elderly couple at the nearby table froze, eyes wide. But Barack's expression remained unchanged. He calmly took out his phone and made a single call. "David, can you bring me the ownership papers?" "Yes, right now, along with the renovation plan we discussed last week." He set the phone down and looked back at Emma, who stood frozen, feeling trapped in a moment she couldn't escape. Barack's words were like a sharp blade, each one a slap to her dignity. As she stood there, her hands still gripping the order book, his words began to pierce her thoughts, and everything she once believed to be true was being challenged. "You see, Emma," he continued, his voice steady, "for the past 8 months, I've been coming here every Friday night, sitting at this table, ordering the same whiskey. Want to know why?" The question not only unsettled her but also opened a door to a truth she had never imagined. She had seen a man who appeared calm, in no rush, unconcerned with social norms or the arrangements of those around him, someone she had judged too quickly. But now, every word Barack spoke made her realize that everything she knew about luxury, class, or hospitality was not what she had believed it to be. "Because 8 months ago I bought this restaurant. Not for the fame or the modern luxury, but because for 55 years, Silver Creek Tavern has represented something real. A place where genuine hospitality doesn't judge what people wear or how many followers they have." The atmosphere in the restaurant fell completely silent. People could hear a napkin drop. David, the restaurant's longtime accountant, appeared shortly after, carrying a leather portfolio. He bowed respectfully to Barack, handing him the documents, and stepped back, trying to hide a smile. Emma stood there, her order book hanging limply in her hands. She could feel the painful truth in every passing second. She hadn't just insulted a customer, she had insulted Barack Obama. She hadn't just offended Barack Obama, she had humiliated her own boss. Not just any boss, but a living legend who had built his career on kindness, leadership, and inspiring decisions that she had just ignored. Emma's face gradually paled. She couldn't hide the growing sensation taking over her. She had insulted not just an ordinary customer, but a living legend. The man standing before her was not just a regular guest as she'd assumed. He was Barack Obama, a figure who had built a monumental career in politics, embodying leadership, compassion, and respect. Everything she'd done, from the contempt in her voice to the way she had sized him up, was a grave mistake, one from which there was no turning back. "Miss Emma," Barack Obama said, his voice resonating, slow yet powerful, like the speeches he'd delivered throughout his years of service to the country, "let me tell you a story about this place." He gestured around the restaurant, taking in the atmosphere, his eyes scanning the room. 55 years ago, I came here for the first time. Back then I wasn't famous, nobody knew who I was. I wore a shirt just like this one. The owner at the time, old Mr. Harper, treated me like I was the most important guest he'd ever had. Not because of who I was, but because he treated everyone like that. He paused and took a sip of whiskey. When his son wanted to sell this place, I bought it 8 months ago. The only reason was to preserve that spirit. The lesson here isn't about branding or social media followers. It's about dignity, respect, and treating people like they matter. Emma's heart tightened. She hadn't realized that the things she thought were important, the exclusivity, the luxury of the restaurant, weren't what Barack and the others valued here. She had viewed everything through a misguided lens, and now the undeniable truth was before her. Carlos, still standing nearby, seemed to sense a shift in the room, standing just a little taller. The elderly couple at the table next to them nodded, showing their approval. Even some of the younger patrons who had been absorbed in their phones, put them down, drawn into the moment. Barack continued, his gaze steady, famous, and filled with authority. "The issue isn't whether I belong here. The question is whether you understand what this place truly stands for." At that moment, Emma could no longer maintain the calm facade she had tried to hold. Her eyes welled up with tears, and the reality shattered before her eyes, the pieces of the world she had built crumbling. She had made a severe mistake, not only in how she had treated Barack but also in how she had perceived everything around her. She realized that her arrogance and narrow view had damaged values she had never fully understood. But what happened next stunned everyone, especially Emma. "I could fire you right now," Barack said, his tone softening, "but that's not what this place stands for. Instead, I'll give you a choice." He pointed to Carlos, who stepped forward, his face filled with concern. "This young man tried to warn you. He recognized me not from social media, but because he understands me not just from public images, but from the values I've always worked to share. He understands something you might not yet. Respect isn't just about appearances." Turning to Carlos, Barack spoke with warmth and authority. "Son, would you like to start training to serve? We need more people who understand what real service is." Carlos' eyes widened in surprise and gratitude. "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." Barack turned back to Emma. "For you, the choice is simple. You can walk out that door and find another job at a place that focuses on modern luxury, or you can learn from Carlos and our seasoned team about what true hospitality means. The choice is yours." Emma wiped away her tears, looking around at the dignified faces of the veteran staff. She made her decision. I want to stay and learn, sir, if you'll allow me." "Good choice," Barack nodded, finishing his whiskey. Jack assigned Carlos to take over her training. The tension in the room began to ease. The elderly couple at the next table started clapping, followed by others joining in, not because a celebrity was present, but because of the lesson they had just witnessed. A reminder that true class isn't in clothes or status, but in how we treat each other. Today, Silver Creek Tavern remains one of LA's top restaurants, not because of its luxury, but because of its heart. And if you happen to visit on a Friday night, you might see man in a simple polo shirt, sitting at his usual corner table, quietly ensuring that the timeless values of respect and dignity continue to live on. This story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of humility, respect, and the value of second chances. It challenges us to reflect on how we treat others, regardless of appearances, and to understand that true class lies in character, not status. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our next one, where we dive into another thought-provoking story with a lesson you won't want to miss. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of this journey with us. We appreciate your time and support, and we can't wait to see you in our next video. This content was created using AI and is entirely fictional. It does not represent any individual, organization, or real events. Any resemblance to real-life situations or people is purely coincidental.